Remember, you are light, you are God's gifts, you are God's divinity, and you're so much more than you can possibly imagine. And you're more powerful than you can possibly imagine. We all are. I wanted just to pop in with this short video because, at the moment on the planet, for many people who haven't known what's been going on and some of the darker aspects of the world, I'm seeing a lot of people online in a lot of distress over a lot of things that has been revealed. And, you know, many of us that are in the particularly healing and spiritual community who maybe regard ourselves as maybe more awake or more conscious of certain things. It's not that we're any better than anyone else, but for whatever reason we're maybe given information or guided towards certain things. And, a lot of us have went through aspects of the dark night of the soul. We've all felt that depth of maybe shock and horror and went through lots of questioning and having to face things that we don't really want to face. Right? And what we've got to remember is, first of all, for those of you who are on this journey, there's that a lot of people, particularly a lot of us as healers and therapists, particularly a lot of us that's been in this work for a long, long time, have done a lot of work in ourselves, and we have a lot of tools to help us become more mentally and more emotionally resilient and spiritually resilient. And lots of other people have maybe not got to that point. And yes, some people just really wake them up and help them pivot more spiritually. But a lot of people are going to need different types of support. And that's why a lot of us have been guided to all these types of work. Even anyone that's in the caring industry, the helper industry, the industry where people genuinely care about others and want to end their suffering or support them and help them evolve or become more empowered in any way, is part of the light, is part of those gifts that help humanity move forward, and we can't forget that. And for those of you who are starting to maybe wake up in a way, I know sometimes, I have some followers and I always think some of them maybe don't have a clue what I've been talking about, but maybe are starting to become more aware now of what I really was talking about. And a lot of us, I know a lot in my community are very strong empaths like me, and a lot of us have kind of tendencies like, the caregiver, the rescuer, we've not wanted humanity, we've not wanted our friends and family, and even our children or things to be exposed to some of this darkness. But the reality is there's aspects of this darkness that is reality. And if we keep hiding things under the table, and we refuse to look at these things or face these things, we're not growing. We're not evolving and growing in a humanitarian level or a spiritual level. And of course, yes, we have to focus on the light. We have to focus on the light, and we have to focus on what we can do to bring light to these situations, and of course sending light, sending positive intentions, and doing positive things in the world that is going to raise the vibration and help other people feel more empowered and stronger, and whatever that may mean to you is going to help. Now, that could be the simplest thing, just being kind to someone that day, smiling, supporting people in simple ways, because it's the daily things, it's the small things that changes people's daily life. It's the small things that people often do that can make the bigger ripple effects. And of course, there's got to be great change at the moment. We can't hide our hand in the sand. And there's lots of people who are who are in positions, right, who are trying to create change. And I think it's really important that no matter what you think or you believe, is that we don't always categorise people that are in certain political parties certain organisations, certain roles, that they're all a certain, certain group. Of course, there is a lot of things in certain areas of work, and there's a lot of things that many of us know is not good. And, there's many elements to that. But this is a time not to give up hope. It's a time to just recognise that there's been things that have been there and they've just been hidden under plain sight. And this is the age of, as more and more is revealed, we shine the light on that and we create changes and we change as humanity. It's just like your own shadow. If there's things within you that you hide away and don't face and don't evolve past, you get stuck and you keep going around in circles and you keep playing out the same scenario. It's the same in the world. If you think about it, it's like, I'm saying the world theatre, I don't know what to call it, but when you think about that, the more that we stick to the same patterns and ignore and pretend not to see things. Now, one of the darkest elements of all this is certain types of trafficking, particularly child and all these elements. And there's very many layers to this. And I know I have, someone close to me that works in an area related to this. And it's certainly a horrendous job but someone's going to do it. Someone is sacrificing aspects of their life to do these jobs. And part of sending light is, I would suggest that we send light and we send love and strength to the people every day that are able to make change, that are able to do things, and that they be guided in the best possible way and they be protected. And part of that is something we all can do. And also recognise that we don't know everything, even though a lot of us are intuitive and, more awake and aware of certain things. There is many layers and elements to this. And what we've got to remember is that a lot of us wouldn't know about a lot of these things if certain people weren't whistleblowers and certain people weren't actually into some of these positions and put their lives at risk to report or to get information out. These are all things. Many people have sacrificed their lives at so many levels to try and make the change and to wake us up to the change. You are light and you can do much. We all can do more than we think we can by bringing as much peace and love in our own lives, and by doing it in our communities, by getting together, and by doing what we can to stop the division, but also not be naive and so conditioned or programmed to believe. Because one of the things that is not helping a lot of people is so many people are still fixated on getting the information from mainstream, and what they don't realise, they've been fed agendas so that they comply with certain things. And one of the things is, if you start being more educated and start going down the rabbit hole, start looking at history, one of the biggest things is people don't look at history. They don't go back and question certain things or they're not willing to look at alternate views or other things. And what happens is they're relying on people who are saying things, and they're just, in a way, we all do it. We've got to a certain sense of complacency. We just believe what someone says rather than actually going and really looking at something. And, it's about you willing to look at all alternative opinions. When you only listen to one broadcast and one frequency, you're always going to just believe that frequency and broadcast. One of the things that helped me, for example, in the holistic and spiritual sector was I learned everyone had different opinions about different things, and they were all taught different things. And a lot of things I could only learn through my own personal experience and repeated experiencing, seeing something over and over again, right? And one of the things was I often was taught things about what people believed or what they were told by maybe another training school, a company, or by a belief system or whatever. But that didn't mean it was true just because someone said that or someone said they had done certain research. Sometimes it's not true. You do your own experience and you think, well, that actually didn't do what it said in the packet. That's the kind of thing, right? So there's lots of things we can only learn through lived experience, right? But we are taught in the modern world to give our power over. And one of the biggest lessons right now is that people who gave their power over to celebrities, and I've talked about this a lot, who put these people up in a pedestal and now are absolutely horrified that the people that they've put up on a pedestal as people with a whole agenda and, being paid by lots of things with an agenda, right? And when you give your power over to celebrities or other people's like that, I'm not saying people can be inspiring and there's certain people that have done things. But one of the things that I know, even help people with marketing, you just look at basic psychology of marketing. Lots of brand, lots of celebrities, for example, even actors and all elements of those kind of industries. They're marketed. There's when you can recognise patterns. We had a lot of empaths. Recognise pattern structures, can see patterns very well in humanity, recognise we all do have some sort of pattern recognition, but different people have different levels of that, can recognise where things are just marketable, is made, so someone is created. Now, there's another reason why I know some about this. I actually, when I was 21, I went to a music college. It was the first rock music college in Scotland. And many of the lecturers that were involved in that school, it was like a small kind of private, even though it wasn't, the education system, it was like we were still with a separate building for a lot of things. We were separated, but we had access to a lot of lecturers and guest lecturers who were in the music industry. And believe me, what we learned was mind-blowing, right? People who were dealing with or had dealt with also people with a certain status in, and there was also people who I was at college with went on and, were taken on with things like Sony and all the things that went on there, and a lot of them left, a lot of them because of some of the, not, recognising there was more going on there than what maybe it was on the surface. And there's a lot of things said that was very, very naive, even at that age. And some of it, I really didn't know what to believe. But, one of the things that I could see was some of these lectures were very sincere in some of the things that they were telling us. And then later information would verify a lot of things. And, through the years, I didn't keep up to date with, a lot of my past, fellow students, but some of them, and they would tell you things that you just started to think, wow, right? And one of the things that we were taught about was not to allow certain companies or certain things to do and take you on and watch what you're signing and what are they going to do, because you'd be signing almost your life away, and the control they would have over you and how they would market you. So if someone decided that they were going to market you very rebellious, punky, a certain look, you would have to do it. And they would take your creative rights away. So one of the things they kept saying, they can tempt you with money, they can do lots of things. And they told us all these, we had I can't remember what it was called, but it was about law, music law. And we had modules in that, and it was very fascinating looking at past cases where certain people lost all their money in the industry and where, the companies would take on a lot of the the power and how that really, turned out for some people in the industry, and the control and what they can do. So if someone, if they decide to market you a certain way, they could market you, decide they're going to market you as sweet, innocent, and, there's certain types of pop stars that will appear like that. They will make them out as very wholesome and very pure, and that's the whole marketing target. So if you think about, I work with archetypes, so if they want to make you look very innocent and pure, or like the girl next door, they will do that. If they want you to look rebellious and something else, they will do that. And that is how they aim at certain audiences. They understand what is trends, what audiences want, and they will use certain characteristics, maybe people's voices, their gifts, and they will push it a certain way, in a way that makes money. And the people that are behind that, the artists, often have no choice. You might think they do, but you'd be quite surprised also how many of them don't write their own songs. That was one of the things, there were certain students that were at college with me who ended up writing a lot of the music for different singers, pop stars and things like that. You'd be quite surprised. And lots of things that goes on in the background that you wouldn't imagine. And one of the things is that it's a business, so they're branded. So even though you might see a documentary, that does not mean that that is what they are in real life. Now, I can give you other examples that I know through other friends. I've got a friend who owns a hotel, and he could tell you about different things that's went on in Glasgow with certain types of celebrities, which an image would be given you on one hand, but when you hear about all the things that's went on in the hotels and what was on, you start to see a whole different picture. So one of the things we've always got to remember is, do not give a power over to anybody. We can all admire people. We can all learn from people. We all can, I think also sometimes it's not about the messenger. Sometimes we learn things, the message, right? But when you think someone is better than you, and they are, they're all seeing, and you're giving your power over. We can learn. There's lots of people that I'm so grateful on my journey that I've learned so much from. And there's lots of people that's challenged my perception, which is a good thing. And help me look at things from all angles to help me say, right, okay, there could be different angles to this, right? And to recognise that we can all have bias, we all can have naivety. And, we also, in relation from an archetypal perspective, we all have strengths, and we all have, weaknesses that sometimes, when you look at archetypal patterns and wounds, and, if you think about the inner child, the child will take on certain patterns for safety. And we get stuck in those loops. So, for example, you look at the entertainer, the kind of jesting archetype, from that perspective, they can put on the mask of trying to be funny and entertain all the time. And I do believe there is a lot of celebrities that have went down that route. There are actually a lot of wounding and hurt behind them, a lot of trauma. But what do? They become comedians, they become some sort of artist to entertain, and they may put on a face and, you look happy, look a certain way, but behind the mask, it's not really how they really feel or what is really going on. There's a lot of that. And then you can see lots of people who are made out, their whole genre. If you look at films, people who play the hero parts, and in the film they can appear as a strong hero, and this is what they're pushed. And I think a lot of people are finding that sort of thing where that's a big shock to them, people that they put again, because they actually don't realise what they're doing is relating to them in the films they saw, or the parts, or when they were interviewed in a certain way, and they think they actually know that. It's like, you can see me and you may have a certain perception of me, but you're only seeing a tiny part of me in my life. So you can have a certain judgment that could be, It could be more near correct, it might not be. We all have perceptions, and often we have perceptions in the way we view the world and the way we view certain even archetypes and how we view people of certain behaviour. And we can sometimes think of a certain character, they represent something in us, and that can trigger us. Or it can actually, someone in a conscious level may remind us of someone that we once loved or liked or whatever, and we're drawn to that. And this is what we've got to be aware of. And this is why this is a huge test for humanity at the moment in relation to discernment. I've talked about this so much, and intuition and our inner guidance, and to not allow our energy to be pulled away. And we all do it, but the more we can bring ourselves back into the presence, right? And you can ask, one of the things that, I try and do every day is ask, what can I do today? Ask to be guided. How will you use me today? And ask, there is God, a divinity, light, the universe, whatever you think is that God aspect or that light aspect. Ask to be guided, ask to be used in the highest good. And, understand that by you doing what you can, don't feel that you're powerless. Sometimes we're very hard on ourselves and we think we're not making a difference. But when you are trying each day to be the light and to share your gifts, you've been part of the puzzle and you are sharing what you're here to share. And the more that we all do that, we empower others. Because one of the biggest problems is most people don't shine their light, don't share their gifts, or they think they have to have a title, or they have to have a certain type of job. It's like even, what people come down into the healing or coaching industry and then they find it really hard to be a business owner. And then they realise that that's not really where they're supposed to do. But they'll say to me, I've spent all this money and training and this and that. But sometimes their role and their gifts and everything they've attained from that, it shows up in a different way in another job or just in their community or in their family. So do not think that just because you're maybe not working as a healer at the moment or a counsellor, therapist, or whatever you would like to do, that may still come, right? Some people recognise that they maybe get to a stage in life and say, right, okay, no, I just know that there's certain things that's not for me anymore, and that's fine. But working through many, many shifts at the moment, and lots of people are going to shift roles. We're all going to shift roles. And a lot of us, what we looked as traditional healing, and the way, a lot of us have been changing that anyway. I've started off over 35 to 36 years ago, I started my journey, in Reiki. That was when I started on my journey in Reiki, and then studied things like meditation, lots of things like that. And, where I thought I was going to be then and what modalities I would be using are very, very different. A part of the evolvement and partly where my path guided me towards. And some of things that happened and where I'd end up, I never imagined. There were some things I really wanted to do, and yeah, they've happened. And they've happened maybe in ways that I planned and I would like to have happened. But a lot of it's also came in maybe ways that I never expected, right? So trust yourself. And, it's about one step at a time. A lot of us, I know for me, I've had to, reduce so much of my work to do a lot of things that I'm having to deal with. I'm waiting, which would appear to be, to have to get an operation. It's very complicated. But at the moment, I'm having to really reduce my workload, and there's lots of things just have not been going at the pace that I would normally like, and I've just not been able to keep up with the pace I would normally be able to manage. And in many ways, I think a lot of us are experiencing that, but we're being slowed down for lots of reasons. And our energy is shifting, and we're being guided to do things very differently. So don't give up. And no matter who you are, you might be just someone who's curious about this video. You have gifts. You are more light. And, if you need help or you're really struggling with anything that's going on at the moment, ask for support, ask for comfort. Do not give up hope. Believe me, there is so much more. A lot of good things are going on that you may not realise are going on. Believe me, they are. There's lots of things going on behind the scenes, and there's a lot of shifts happening. It can sometimes look darker before, well, it's the darkest before the dawn, before the light comes through, right? And there is more light than we can possibly imagine. There's more good, and we've got to remind ourselves of that. And it's just maybe a wake up. It's a wake up call for humanity. And it's also a wake up for us all to take self-responsibility of areas in society where we sometimes just think it's someone else's problem. Of course, we all can't be experts in each area, and we can't spread ourselves thin. We've got to step up and do what we can, what we're guided to do. But if you have a calling, and if you're being called to do something, even taking that little baby step towards that is a positive thing. Now, if you would love to join like-minded souls, I do have the Heart Hub and the Soul Hub. And the Heart Hub is a community where we have, every 2 weeks, we have Sunday Stillness with David Bowen, a good friend of mine, the healer. We have you get access to lots of different meditations and some courses in a learning hub, a community, and remote healing each week for anyone who wants that. There's lots of few other things. I've added also a monthly morning coffee spiritual chat where people can, and we had the first one last week and it went really well. And the Soul Hub is for soul-led business owners who are looking for more a kind of business support community, and we do a monthly business co-creation session where you can bring a challenge that you have in your business, and we can try and think of solutions and help you. And there's more things going to be added to that. So if you're interested in any of that, you can. I'll leave the details before. But remember, you are the light. You're more powerful and more beautiful, and you've got more gifts than you possibly can imagine. So remember that. Okay, bye-bye for now.